Well, I didn't see that one coming. The Saints do grab their quarterback in round 2, number 40 overall in the NFL draft. Honestly, I didn't see Tyler Shough as the pick. We'll break it down. We'll break down their other 2 picks, Broughton and Sanker, and hopefully at the end I can give you a little bit of hope on the whole deal. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. Like, I wanna make it clear from the outset, I'm not trying to hate on Tyler Shough at all, but I have my concerns are coming in, as I'm kinda questioning at drafting him at number 40, because I was thinking about it, I was like, is there really a scenario where the Saints thought he wasn't going to be sitting still in the draft at 71, excuse me, in the 3rd round? Pittsburgh, really the only other team you had to worry about, I think, with the starting looking for a starting quarterback or a serious backup because, again, they still only have Mason Rudolph on their roster right now. They weren't picking 83. They didn't take a quarterback at 21 in the first round. They didn't with teams, including the Giants, trying to trade up to get in the first round. Didn't try to trade back, pick up extra picks at any point during this process. They seemed almost unconcerned about who their quarterback's going to be. I don't know what's going on there. Don't pretend to know, but it feels like they really weren't a player in this. I think the Browns, everybody thought they had those 2 picks in front of the Saints. They were taking their guy, and that was going to be that. They didn't. So technically, they passed on a quarterback before we took Shough at 40. They passed it number 5, number 33, and number 36. At no point did they do any additional trade backs at all. They still had 67 and passed there. 4 picks before we took Broughton in the 3rd round. So I this just doesn't look. I get all in if you love the guy and you want to go get him. We had that conversation about the first round, but I'm thinking when you get to this point in the draft, maybe a little forecasting, maybe a little intuition. Was there anybody going to take Tyler Shough in the 2nd round? I don't see it. I really, really don't. The next 2 to go off the board was basically Jalen Milroe. Seattle's drafting a backup slash maybe potential long term because I don't know how much faith they have in Sam Darnold. They did just bring him in to be the starter, but there's that. And he went at 92. Um, Cleveland finally jumped on the board taking a rookie quarterback. They went Dylan Gabriel at 94. So and I know some of this is hindsight, but Mickey Loomis talked about in his pre-draft press conference about opportunity cost. And he mentioned all about you know, if we really have a guy ranked high, I say we go get him, but that's what the opportunity cost. Well, what opportunity did you lose doing that? He mentioned about, well, possibly there were times, or he was talking about times where, trading up, we could have stayed put and got the guy we want instead of trading up. Also talked about guys that they want possibly making it longer in the draft and not burning a pick on them. But it all goes back to what I mean. He was honest. Their evaluation process. He believes in it, and when there's a guy highly ranked, he sees no reason to just not go get him. I think that may be overly optimistic at times. Um, when you can pass on players, and we'll just use Broughton as an example. Sanders went right after we drafted Chuck. Collins, who's the better Texas defensive interior lineman that played next to Broughton, went not soon after. You had guys like Norman Lott, uh, Darius Alexander went first pick in the 3rd round. You had some other really, really probably on the draft board much higher players than Broughton. What if you swap that around? Where you still get Shough? Because I'm sorry, I'm just not buying he wouldn't have been there at 71. Really, I think he would have been. And I think that would have been the opportune time to take him. Let's go on from there and figure out this. this quarterback situation. So overall, and I'll kind of briefly roll through all three of the picks, but I think the big takeaway for me is it could be a missed opportunity in the sense. And look, we're just talking about comparing about taking Broughton. You had other really good football players, wide receivers, corners, all kind of in the mix there, and I think most of the running backs were gone actually right before Shough, but still some I think would have been viable with that pick. So it's a rough one, and it is strongly my opinion. But my opinion is we kind of overplayed the hand a little bit there with taking Shough at 40. Let's hope it works out. Now, the quick recap of all three of these players, I suspect a little later in the week we'll be doing a lot more um, in depth on these guys. But the overview, the recap, so to speak. Look, Tyler Shough, 25 years old. He was in college for 7 years. Okay. Now, some people see that as a negative. Some people see that as a positive, and I think potentially they could be both. Honestly, um, and we'll get to that in a second. But from 2018 to 2020, he was at Oregon. He redshirted in 2018, backed up Justin Herbert that year and in 2019. 2020 to me is a year that I just don't really talk about with the college prospects because it was such a screwy year. I don't know if anything that they did or didn't do actually properly reflects what they are as a football player. It's almost like everybody just gets a pass on that year. So he transferred out of Oregon, went to Texas Tech in 2021 to 2023. Now, at times he was a starter all 3 years. One of the years I think 2 of the years actually, he was kind of battling another player for the starting job and got starts in both of them. I believe that was 21 and 22. But in 2021, broken collarbone ends the season. In 2022, gets a shoulder injury, misses some time. And I know he was in a quarterback battle that year. So something like 7 games, played in 7 games that year, but only 5 started, and everything else was missing because of the shoulder injury. Then in 2023, a broken fibula. It seems the take on him while he was at Texas Tech, when he was healthy and could get on the field for the most part, he played fairly well, looked pretty good. But in 2024, he transfers to Louisville. That's his only college full blown season where you get a full body of work. I don't think the numbers were all that bad, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if it was really exciting, heartwarming stuff coming out of the quarterback position there. His numbers, I mean, like I said, I don't know if it's outstanding, but they were good. Threw for almost 3,200 yards, missed about 5 yards. Completion percentage 62.7, 23 touchdowns against 6 interceptions. During his career, Kellen Moore mentioned in the post game or post draft press conference last night that he can run. Looking at it, he had a big rushing season in 2020, but like I said, I just kind of ignore all the stuff that happened in 2020. But in 23 and 24, he put up some pretty decent rushing, mobile type numbers in at Texas Tech. And interesting enough, that's got injured both those years. Um, but I don't know if you truly consider him mobile or definitely not dual threat. I don't think there's anywhere on that. So maybe there's a question mark there, maybe not. I don't know. He gets into the Senior Bowl, and that's where he exploded into the pre-draft scene. What he did there, look, he's got some size as far as height. I think he's around 6'5", if the measurements are right on him. God knows 7 years he's got experience running through systems and a couple of different types of systems. He's got some arm talent. If you look at his highlights, he can throw the ball. There's no doubt about that. And a lot of teams, and I think this is what made the Saints nervous, is teams looking around and going, "Man, he's got great arm talent." I just don't know if there were a lot of teams looking beyond that to draft him in the first or second. Obviously not the first, but even in the second round, where again he wouldn't have been available for us at 71. And the overall knowledge of the position is something that really understands 7 years kind of understudy in college, you kind of hope. So, I mean, I think the good and the bad, like the age of 25, a lot of experience, he's got a great story. He's had to overcome a lot of stuff to get to this point to get drafted in the second round. And that's why I don't want to slam him as a player or as a person. But um 25 years old, so likely not so much to be rattled um in a situation where a younger quarterback, maybe. I mean, you, I don't know, but that's kind of one of the thoughts on that. Um, and at 25, a lot of people are saying, "Well, how many years does he really have left?" Or 7 years in college, and really only. And I'm kind of on this one. This is the one that bugs me. 7 years in college, really, truly, only one really productive season, and throw in at age 25 with an injury history. Going, how long are you going to have this guy if he is as good in everything you think he is? So hopefully it works out. I've been saying all along, I will trust more Nussmeier and Tolles until they give me reason not to. But I tell you what, it this one's I'm questioning a little bit. I'm not to the point where I'm gonna be unfaithful with them. I'm still gonna try to trust them, but I feel like I want to start grabbing their cell phones and checking their text messages, if you know what I mean. Um, Vernon Broughton, and we're gonna kind of get, I think, both Vernon Broughton and Jonus Sanker almost in a weird sort of way the same pick. It just bear with me, but Broughton 5 years at Texas from 2020 to 2024. Um, he's a bit of a late bloomer. He kind of had to work his way up through. And look, Texas over that time had some really good defensive tackles. Some of them are still or drafted and playing in the NFL currently. He's kind of worked his way up. And I think it was kind of more or less last year, especially towards the end of last year in their playoff run, where he really started looking like maybe he kind of through opportunity and through getting better, kind of, I don't know if you want to call it a breakthrough, maybe a mini breakthrough. Some people were noticing him at that point. Definitely, I'm sure this, the Bo Davis influence, even though Davis had already left last year. Um, Davis had him earlier in his career while he was developing. I kind of like that a little bit as a good sign, because being as Davis is now a Saints defensive line coach, whatever potential's there, maybe they can kind of keep tapping into it, because that's really kind of what you're looking at. I think when him is, does he have the upside? I think as far as the floor, um, solid rotational guy. He's got some size. He's live. I mean, I think he's got a good chance of bumping some people off the back end of that roster because of an ability to play multiple positions across the defensive line. I know that's something the Saints were looking for. Like I said, got some size, some athletic ability, mostly in the running game, stopping the run. It's kind of been mentioned. You're going to get what you get in the passing game, and he probably needs to develop that. Enter Brian Young. Hopefully he can tap into that, because he seems to have done a good job with them, with some of our pass rushers late last year once he got the job there. So we will see on that. But I think overall it's a fairly solid pick. Kind of typical of what you're going to find in this point in the draft when you get towards the end of day two and moving into day three. And as much as this draft, I think, had a lot of high floor players, I think you started into the third round getting to where the floor is a little lower. But when you look at somebody like him with his size and what he's shown so far, and the fact that he's continually gotten better every year, and kind of getting back with his old college coach who helped him develop, maybe the floor is a little lower, but you can develop him, and maybe a little higher ceiling than some of the other guys in that area with him, where they're kind of, you get what you get, guys. They'll have a higher floor, but probably not as much potential as Vernon Broughton might have. Jonas Sanker, I think, is the same way, except he just plays safety. 4 years of Virginia, good size, good speed. It's a box type safety. Um, the run stopping guy. I looked at some of his highlights, and at times I'm going, man, that's kind of Von Bell like. It sounds like he's probably going to need some coaching and coverage, but he can go make some plays. So you're looking at him right now, special teamer, backup type guy that, again, you develop him, potential to get better, because he was a very good, solid, high tackling machine his last 2 years in college. Lord knows the Saints need players like that. So, think he's a good fit, and I think he's gonna have opportunities to move up that safety depth chart real quick. So, all the other ones sitting there from last year, better look out. Don't know if he'll do it, but it looks like he could be a guy that would push them and maybe start stealing some playing time. So that kind of my recap right there on the draft. I just I don't want to be uncertain about the Shuck pick. And again, if it had been at 71, I think I wouldn't even just be batting an eye. It is what it is. We don't know what the quarterback situation's all about at all, and they still ain't talking. So we still don't know what this is all going to shake out to. Um, so this is just again, we've been playing the wait and see game over this whole thing for months now, and it looks like we may even be playing this damn thing all the way to training camp. Who knows? But it is what it is. Apparently, that was their guy. They went up and got him, and as a Saints fan, I hope they are correct on this. I really, really want them to be because we really, really need them to be. And with that being said, I promise you a little bit of hope. I'll try. And oddly enough, I did this earlier in the week where I ran a Gronk search on since 2000, how many quarterbacks drafted in the second or third round had 20 plus starts in their NFL career? And I kind of did this in the back of my head thinking we may not be able to get the quarter or may pass on the quarterback in the first round. We may be looking for some in the second and the third. Not exactly prophetic. I think we all kind of maybe thought that was a possibility at that point. Um, so what I got back, and I just picked arbitrarily 20 or more starts just because I know if I had done it over the last 25, 26 years without some type of qualifier, the list would even been bigger than what it was. But it was 21 total. Now I'm not going to go through the whole list. You recognize most of the names on there, but the first two that popped up because it gave it to me by year, Drew Brees and then Quincy Carter, who there's the two ends of the spectrum of possibilities, I guess, at the extreme. I had forgotten about Quincy Carter till he popped up and went, oh, yeah. Breeze, Hall of Famer, Super Bowl MVP. And then Quincy Carter, probably best known for, I think, 3 seasons in Dallas, trying to make him the starting quarterback and getting so bad to the point that some undrafted free agent named Tony Romo got to have an NFL career because of it. Just put it to you that way. Of those, and the other 19 names fall all solidly somewhere between those two. But with at least 20 plus, and then I had to pare down to at least one playoff appearance, actually playing a game. That list of 21 goes down to Breeze, Andy Dalton, Colin Kaepernick, Derek Carr, Alex Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jalen Hurts, it's Luke McCown, Matt Schaub, Nick Foles, and Russell Wilson. Not a bad, terrible list, but there's, it is what it is. There's some names on there that, some backups and stuff, but hey, it is what it is, right? 6 of them have been in the Super Bowl. Obviously, Breeze, 1-for-1 Super Bowl MVP. Nick Foles, 1-for-1, because also kind of have to keep reminding myself he finished the year when Carson Wentz got hurt, got him through the playoff run and winning the Super Bowl, and he cracks an MVP. Garoppolo and Kaepernick both 0-for-1, and honestly, Garoppolo, I had also forgotten played in a Super Bowl. That was the first Frisco Kansas City Super Bowl, and he actually had a fourth quarter lead that they ended up blowing, in Kansas City snatched the game out from under him, and seems to be a reoccurring theme because they did the same thing the second Super Bowl they played a few years ago. Kaepernick had the big comeback. He was down early and just fell short. So two guys that didn't play great, didn't play horrible, but they played in a Super Bowl coming out of that draft spot. The last two is Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson. Both 1-for-2. Hurts is a Super Bowl MVP. Think both of them kind of had chances to maybe go 2-for-2. Definitely Russell Wilson if they hand the ball to beast mode on the 1 yard line. So, I mean, all in all, The hope is it is possible. And, I'm setting my sights on right now that Tyler Shough is one of the guys on that list to at least be good enough, preferably early in his career, to get us to the point where, holy crap, he got us to a playoff game. First time here, go ahead, please give me a subscribe, thumbs up for the like. Let's feed that algorithm, make it very, very happy. And I will put on the end card somewhere there. Previous video breaking down Banks and why I like him, and I pretty much give the Saints an A for that one. So put it up, go take a look if you haven't seen it yet. So till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.